Well, hello to you. This is Cody from Pretty Normal Media. I am engaging in a bit of just messing around, some creative endeavors. If you can't tell, I'm modifying or making a map for Doom, which is pretty much a household name by this point. I think pretty much all of you have heard of it. And it's probably my favorite game of all time. I don't just enjoy first person shooters, but my overall, if we want to talk about like hours logged on a single game, it's probably going to be this one more than anything else. And specifically Doom 2, because Doom 2, even though it kind of just feels like DLC for Doom 1, it was appropriately expansive in what it added. And that's really the game that gets modded the most. And I'm a big fan of the technology and the graphics and just the design choices and design philosophies from this period. So it's very interesting to me to kind of just tinker with this engine and see what it can do. And the blessed the blessed community out there has been hard at work over the last, I don't know how many decades, just the last 2 decades, but just countless hours and many years have gone into trying to create a really expansive and interesting kind of a world for people to play with. And oh my, we got a problem here. And I enjoy, tinkering with it and trying to figure it out. Trying to see, just what you can do with it. Because the original game, as any fan knows, is very limited in what it can do. It's very, uh-oh. Where'd my catwalk go? Oh. It's very limited in what it can do. And the way that people have been able to expand on it and add to its feature list, in a sense, over the years is pretty remarkable. And I'm very interested in playing with it and seeing what's possible. And specifically, when it comes to what are called 3D floors in Doom and some of these other features, in a standard 3D editing kind of environment, it's pretty easy to make complex stuff out of pretty rudimentary kind of primitives or other tools for sculpting and things like that. In Doom, things have to be created very individually and very painstakingly. But because there's not a whole lot of detail in the game, it's not a super time-consuming process to create a large-scale environment that would take, far longer on in a conventional 3D setting. So now I'm kind of looking at this staircase here and making sure everything is even. And I kind of have a bit of an issue here, which is that I want this 3D floor to connect here, but it creates a bit of a gap where there's a bit of void or black right there. So in order to fix that, can probably do is, well, first I'm going to remove this line here. I don't need that. But I'm going to just kind of play. Well, no, I did need that line. So I was lying. I did need it. But I think what I'm going to do is extend the 3D floor here to almost touch this surface here, and I'm going to have it maybe stop just shy so that it's just basically touching it, and now we can, you know, we can walk across it, which is cool. But now I have this like descending staircase, and I have this kind of the shape here, which I'm not entirely fond of because I want it to slope. I want to have the staircase in the bottom. I want this top here to not look like a bunch of Lego pieces. So what I need to do is actually I can leave these untextured, because here's what I'm going to do. And I just kind of started learning about this. I've known about this for a long time, but it's not something I really would do in the game when editing, because I would mess with the pure vanilla old school Doom, because it's I wanted to get my feet wet and understand that first. But for something like this, I'm mapping in what's called the UDMF, or Universal Doom Mapping format. It's this really radically advanced compared to the original kind of format that allows for a greater range of effects, but it has to do it in this hacky way, because since the Doom engine is not really 3D, oh my god, how do I keep messing this up? This is something that's a little frustrating. It can be kind of finicky. But because the engine is not really 3D, at least, or at the very least, it operates in a very limited 3D space, simple things that should be pretty straightforward end up being kind of a somewhat laborious process like this, because all this information affects all the it affects the information of both, you know, the floor and the ceiling. I can't really like work with them independently truly. So 181 is going to be plane aligned slope. We're going to say I want the ceiling aligned, so front, and this automatically, yay, did exactly what I was hoping it would. It does stretch the texture a bit, but not too much. And so now when you walk up the stairs, you get this nice sloped kind of ceiling, but you have the stairy stairs. So that's cool. But honestly, maybe this part should be sloping too. Well, it is sloping a little bit. It's actually not really what I want. So what if I did the same thing here? And we said front. Now, did that do anything? Might not have. I'm not sure. You can see when I did the redo there and I flipped it. Yeah, we do kind of have this effect here that's not entirely wanted. So I'm going to just take that effect off and maybe just take all these and push them down. Yeah. There. Now we have our ideal slope nodes. I love that. Shift A is something really useful for aligning textures, and the way that texture misalignment kind of gets fixed or whatever in GZDoom Builder specifically, it handles it very, very, very well. So we kind of have this whole thing where you're walking through here, and really, maybe I don't want that texture here because it sort of just gets hidden by the stairs. I'm trying to think of like whether or not there's a better. This is the Otex texture set, which has a lot of cool stuff in it. And maybe this might actually be better to have the non-skull, maybe keep the skull ones in here in the starting room here. And this isn't really the starting room of the level, but the starting room of this area, and kind of keep it more, yeah. So then we just really have the skulls in this area and kind of the regular ones here. But then we have an alternate version of the skull texture in this kind of catwalk area here. It's great. I love the idea of creating like a creepy library. It's just a weird, strange vibe to kind of go with. And we'll shift these pixels up a little bit to match this. Nice. And bring this down. Bring this big old slab down. And yeah, making this from scratch with just, you know, some random textures to work with would be really difficult to do in a modern 3D environment. It would look much better and I could do way more with it. But if I'm trying to kind of just fiddle around for a little bit and get some basic shapes down, and then get gameplay going really quickly after, like, this is a much more fun way to kind of go about it. Well, fun is in like I can get results quicker, but there's certainly nothing wrong with putting in the time to do much more detailed stuff. Really, I almost feel like I could fix this part right here where I can't have it really touch the surface by just simply extending, and make the grid a little fatter there. If I just extend these lines, I bet I could extend this here and not even lose. No, it's still happening. I don't know why I thought I was going to fix that. But I do kind of like how the room opens up just a little bit there at the end. So maybe I'll just keep that in. Oh, whoops. Let's, yeah. Maybe just keep that there. Scoot this a little bit more over here. And then we actually do have kind of a nice little way that that room opens up, which is cool. And yeah, you know, you texture these areas, and it's so nice how you can just go Shift A and it just cleans it up. It's really just a great tool. And then we do get the skull gets chopped off here. Not sure how if I like that. Well, I don't. But if I raise it, it won't really. Oh, wait, look at that. It's just, there we go. That fixes that. And the 3D floor, we can just raise that by a couple units to match this. So that's cool. That kind of fixes everything there. So it's kind of like, well, what do I want to put in this? And the thing is, I was looking up libraries on Google and I saw this cool looking thing and I thought, like, oh, I kind of want to make something like that. So what do I stick in there now? What do I stick in my library? Well, at the very least, I can put the player in this area and kind of get a feel for how it looks. And oh my, okay, so it's real dark, which is not good. There's kind of an overall light level to set here, so I'll just set the whole thing to 176. And you know, it's still pretty bland because I haven't put much in it. There's not really any real true lighting in it right now, but you get up to here, and then you can go on the catwalk, which is cool. The catwalk is way too thick, but I'll make it thinner. You can't fall off it here, so that's good. Texture looks cool on it. I can obviously go under it, and yeah, that all looks good. But obviously, there needs to be more stuff going on. So at the very least, this is where things can get tricky, because it's like, well, what am I going to put under the catwalk, because it affects the geometry up there too. And in this picture, there's not really a lot under it. So the only thing that's really under it are like these supports. And they do kind of touch the walls there, so maybe, because I don't want them touching the perimeters here, because I'm trying to keep it from causing that clipping issue. But it might be possible to get it right, like maybe like the way it is here. I can kind of fudge it a little bit. And this does create a slight issue with getting the texture aligned, which I don't like. But there might be a way around this. So what if, for instance, I made the texture, I could scale it. That's one thing that some people do. You can actually, something you definitely couldn't do in the original, you can scale texture slightly. This is going to start to look kind of unelegant. And it may not be a solution. And it kind of isn't. I'm going to try maybe 1.2. Oh, it's way too big now. What if it was 1.02? It just doesn't really work when I try to. So let's take that back to where it was. And maybe just think about, see, that's another thing I don't like, is that you can't really see certain parts of the 3D floor when you're on the bottom there, and that might just be a limitation that can't be overcome, or maybe it's something I can do something about. I don't know. Because, yeah, I'm not really having a lot of luck there, but it creates the illusion well enough. I mean, certainly when you're in the bottom, you know, and the top, you can see what's going on there. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put little beams to kind of act as small little pillars that are keeping the catwalk, you know, because you don't want it to just float there. But here's the thing: if I try to adjust this, it'll adjust all the other ones too. So what I probably need to do, first I'm going to join these so to make it a little easier to do what I'm about to do. But I'm going to see what this does. So add an extra sector tag to it, which you can tag sectors and give them certain properties, and then they'll respond in a certain way. And this might not work. There's probably an easier way to do what I'm doing, but I'm just kind of just experimenting here, because I want to set the 3D floor to 11 What happens if it's both 10 and 11? Is anything interesting? Oh, look, it kind of... It's kind of a funny thing that happened. And it's because my dummy sector here, which is this kind of... See, this is this weird thing. This is such a hacky, weird way to do this, but it's kind of fascinating. Yeah, so now... It's cool. You can see it below there. But I don't know if there's any real point in giving it the original, 10 tag. So I'm just going to give it the 11. Oh, look at that. It creates a bit of an issue here. Wow, okay, so I did actually need that. Cool, okay, so that's lesson learned, Now, I don't want to use this texture. I don't even want to use the O book. Oh, wait a second. Look at this one. No, it's the texture's not the right size there. There's some pretty creepy ones here. I'm also playing music from the Aubrey Hodges version of the Final Doom soundtrack on the PlayStation. It's very foreboding and strange, and I like the feeling it creates. What if we used marble here? Look at that. That's kind of cool. I don't know how well it fits, but I kind of like it. You know what? I don't like it. Thought I did. Something about it is kind of clashing, is even though I kind of like the way it looks. What about this kind of marble? It's too bad the texture's really not like tall enough, because you get that repeating part, and I don't necessarily want that. That's a little cooler. It's kind of weird. And actually, what happens if we just kind of, yeah, and then we push this one up? That's kind of cool. In fact, I don't want to use that one for the top surface. There might be a better... one I can use. I got to remember some of the names of some of these textures, because it ends up taking a long time to find what I need. But oh, that's kind of cool. So now I've got the functional catwalk. We got all this stuff. I'm going to add a couple more things before we wrap it up today, but let's add some bookshelves. Now, there are some bookshelf textures here. Where did I just draw that new line? Right there. As you can see, that's not the right size for the texture. Probably need to have like 128 on that side, 128 on this side. I can always scale textures, but that will, that can cause them to look disproportionate. So I'm just going to keep it here. Look at that. That's a cool texture. So is that one. Oh, I like that. Now, here we have a tiny little skinny part here. So, in fact, I'm going to make it thicker, because a bookshelf conceivably would probably be a little thicker than that. Up here, I will use... What am I going to use? There's some wood textures. And I think that works fine. But for this part here, see, I'm trying to remember the I can't remember where those where did I find that? Okay, so that was O book. So if I type in, if I type that in and just take off a few of those letters, there we go. Oh, that's cool. That looks really kind of creepy. And for the back, I'll just use where are the wood textures? Yeah, right there. Look at that. That's really cool. I like that. Although, yeah, that seems fine, I think. I mean, I almost want it to have, I almost feel like it's better there, because I kind of want to take a look at the wood section from the original Doom, because it has some library kind of segments that look kind of cool, and it might actually look more interesting to use that there. You've got we've got a few of those. We'll just use those two. Okay. Although the wood is much darker on top here, so maybe if I can find a lighter, if there's a lighter one, which there doesn't really seem to be. Well, that one's a lot lighter. That one actually works okay. So now I got this cool effect here. So I'm gonna just copy and paste this a few times, because I think there's a way maybe to flip these horizontally and vertically. I couldn't find the tool on here that could do that, but there very well might be. But at the very least, these shapes work well enough because of their symmetry that I don't have to do any flipping. Now I got like copies of them here, and that's really cool. This is really starting to make this thing feel more alive. Now, in my reference image here, there's some interesting stuff going on in the middle here. So I kind of want to, I don't know, what kind of cool thing can we put here in the middle? Like I mean, I do kind of like those symbols there. We could kind of like mimic that, where you've got this thing that almost seems like a inverted crucifix, but has this diamond. Like, so what if we kind of just did that? Like, so it's like a diamond with a little sort of sword thing at the bottom. So like, what if I did something like this? And it's got the diamond, and then like it kind of crosses through in the middle here. I might make that a 3D floor to kind of add some weirdness to it. And then it kind of goes up for a little bit. Kind of ends, kind of has this sort of pointed part. And it also has a little kind of pointy part at the bottom. We got just enough room here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just delete all of these. Wait, well, there's actually a tool that merges sectors. I'm going to see if I can find it here. Or it could be, Look at that. There's so many things here. I know what most of these things do, I think. But I don't know if what I'm trying to do is actually... Oh, wait, merge. Yay! Yeah, so what was that? Merge sectors is just Shift J, so that's cool. And then I can also... that saves me some time. Not a whole lot, but it's cool to have that feature. So now it's just one sector. And it's perfectly in the middle of our library here. You know, it'd be kind of weird to make a window in that shape, maybe, but maybe this leads somewhere. Oh, wait, this is not perfectly in the middle. That's interesting. I thought it was. Because, like, this is not... The middle here is not the middle here, but why is that? Huh. Everything seems to be more or less completely in the middle, so I guess that's not a big deal, but I'm probably doing something wrong here. Let's see. 6. Uh-oh. Okay. It is longer on this side. Because here it's 384, and here it's 480, 448. So let's just scoot all this. Oh no. Okay. Let's decrease the grid a little bit. And what we can do is just grab all this. Now it says 384. Now everything's lined up. Cool. Now, if I decided to make this 3D as well, and new sector tag 12, because I haven't used that one yet. Then let's make this one 12. Great. Now I can go outside the map here to my dummy sectors, and again, this is such a peculiar way to have to do this, but you know, it's a price that you pay to get certain results because of Doom's fundamentally archaic nature. See, now I can raise this up. I kind of like it being suspended in between here and the catwalk. And let's give it a weird surface. Let's give it something that is kind of creepy, maybe even animated. In fact, let's get real weird. Let's make it a type that is swimmable. Let's make it 180 opacity, so it's not quite opaque. Now it's transparent. Let's give it a blood texture, and there's a really cool. There's some really cool fluids in this texture pack here, including a blood animation that I think works better than the original games did. And okay, I can't remember where it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, because I used it here. Here we go. So now I'm going to paste it. I'm going to paste that texture name here. I'm also going to make sure that that area is also, and it's creepy, really creepy looking now. I wonder what would happen if I told the dummy sector to glow, which I think is 8. Oh, no, it's not. Yeah, light phased. Let's see what happens. I'm going to put the player right here because I'm not sure whether or not that got an effect that I actually like. So, oh wow, look, it's really pretty creepy. And I like that there's a shadow, but then like at the same time, yeah, that's and it doesn't affect the top there, so that's good. Wow, it is awful dark inside of it. Um, wow, that's really creepy. So I don't know if you can actually swim in it. Might not be deep enough for that. This is such an experimental thing. So let's put the player up here without the cheat code on. Let's see what happens. Yeah, it's like it's definitely not swimmable. So if I made it thicker, it might be, but I don't know. In fact, maybe I almost kind of like it being as thin as it is, but I almost want to make it thicker. So maybe I could scoot everything over in a sense. Let's see if that works. And then push the centers over here and then realign them with the center. So that gives us a bit more thickness, so at least the player can sort of go through it, but is it actually going to... Oh, that's so weird. Like, you can kind of like jump in it and swim around. So I'm also going to... That's kind of weird that the brightness is kind of acting the way it is, but let's make it fade to like a dark red. And yeah, that's kind of weird. I don't know if that's going to give me the effect I want. We're going to try, we're just going to use fly again so I can kind of test this. Oh, that's super weird. Huh. Instead of light phase, it's light. Yeah, there's a bunch of different light modes. I want to see what happens if I try this one. And also, I want to say that maybe I could make this brighter. I want to say that that's probably going to be the way to get the effect I want. It's a really weird kind of thing happening on the bottom there. I don't exactly like that. Oh, it's pretty weird. Look at that strange effect, but the texture disappears, which is really weird. So let's just take, like, let's have no lighting going on there. No weird lighting effects. So now what happens? Now we've got this thing that kind of creates like this cool transparent shadow. It's kind of weird. Let's try that again. Whoops. So you still can't really swim through it, I guess. That shadow is kind of interesting just because since it's fluid, it's not really going to have a standard, the kind of shadow you would normally see. It wouldn't have, yeah, just because, I don't know, fluid is going to react to light differently, so that kind of, in a weird way, sort of works. It's a very strange effect that I like. But I'm also trying to figure out, yeah, because see, the thing is, I set the brightness pretty high, so let's set it down to like 176. Yeah, we do get a pretty cool translucent weird effect, but we also get that, and I think that's because of the sector fade. Yeah, it is. We had a sector fade on here, so what if we just turn it way down and maybe desaturated it a bit so it's not so red? Well, the effect is not quite what I was going for, but and so this is getting into some weird stuff just because it's kind of hard to, and see that effect doesn't show up in the editor. What I'm doing now is I'm trying to turn down just this area here because maybe that might actually make the effect a little bit more convincing. And we still kind of get that same weird thing going on there. So if I took out the fade, and maybe instead just did light, you know, what does that do? And it seems to create noteworthy kind of weird effect. Yeah, that's probably about as close as I'm going to get to the effect I wanted. And what I could do is put something in here, such as a invisibility right in the center there. You can't even really see it, but oh, it's right there. So what I can do is I can just push that up to where it's there. And here's something cool you can do. You can trigger it to do something else. So right now I've got it set to nothing, but what if I had it set to an earthquake? But that's just one action. Now I can write a script to do more actions, but I don't know how to do that right now. So I'm just going to go with what I know how to do. So I'm going to spawn thing. Spawn thing here, and what kind of thing? So I can tell it, well, let's say an arachnotron, hopefully facing the player. New thing tag, let's try 2. Map spot tag. I'm not sure what that is. So let's say I had a spider mastermind. Sorry, an arachnotron. So we got cameras, sector actions. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to briefly look up things spawn. Spawn ID. Okay. Huh. Well, I was having a little trouble quite understanding that. So, it's not going to be under monsters. It's not going to be under teleports. There's boom items. There's keys. Portals. And none of these seem to have anything to do with spawns. Seems like I might have to write a script to do this. Like I said, I'm not really ready to do that yet. But here's something I could do. Well, I might save that for another day because I got to wrap it up in here, I think. I do want to do some stuff though. I want some stuff to happen when you get that invisibility sphere, because this is like a really weird, cool setup. And I'll probably position it just a little bit higher, just so we can definitely not reach it from the ground level. And the last couple things I think I'll do is just kind of do some real simple lighting to try to give the area a little bit of character, and I'll probably wrap it up, and I'll kind of do a run through the level. So there's a lot of cool things here. Candelabras seem to be appropriate for something like a library, so I like that. And I like that there's a little skull on the candelabra. It's a pretty fun little thing there. So I can go to I can tell it to show all the dynamic lights, but because of those the lights for those are created elsewhere, so you won't really see them in the preview. But if I just go into GZDoom, where I have dynamic lights kind of automatically on there already, yeah, see, we kind of see a bit of the illusion breaking right along there, so I'm not really sure what to do about that. But that adds a little bit of charm, but it's really not really what we need. And there's really no detail on the roof at all, so that's something I think needs to be addressed. And I might be able to kind of fudge things a bit by kind of just, well, here's something we can do. We can kind of group some of these things to make some of this editing easier. These subsectors here can be grouped. All those are all those are grouped. Well, they are now. Okay, so all this is looking pretty good. But I wanted to just do a little something here. So let's just select all these and kind of, in fact, let's take this part and just push it down a bit. Push it down 128 units. That already gives us a lot more to work with. And then I can kind of keep things from getting too repetitive with a nice wood texture. So like there's a wood set here, and some actually pretty creepy wood textures here. There's some pretty fantastic kind of stuff to play with. Like that creates a really nice effect. And what we can probably do is add a couple of windows here. What I'll do is I'll just kind of place them in between here so we don't get in the way of the 3D sectors. We can kind of make certain choices that will be aesthetically interesting but won't really interfere with things. What I want to do here is kind of add a nice skybox sort of effect. Not really like a skybox in the sense of 3D editing, but just a sky window, I guess. And F sky is what we use for that, and that, you know, shows us the sky there. And this is fun because we can add a bit of contrast. We can make that like a 192, make that slightly brighter than the rest of the environment. Really, this whole area could be a little darker. Because in reality, we don't need it to be as bright as it is. We can maybe make it a 128. Make the catwalk 128 as well. So now this adds an enormous amount of contrast when we kind of look at these here and we see that they're at 192. And also those candelabras are really going to light up and really be interesting. So right here, I have already have some colors I've used on a previous sky window or kind of area where you can see out there. I'm going to supply it here for ceiling, upper things, which is just anything that passes under it, and the floor level. And that kind of gives us a sense that that creepy sky is shining in, and because there is some sunlight coming from that, at least that's what I'm implying. And so this already looks a lot better, but it's pretty dark now. And also that area right there, I forgot to change. But it's almost too dark, so I'm going to at least add a few more lights here and there. And one thing I can do, which is fun, is you can create these weird hanging lights that almost seem like a chandelier. So like, for instance, I can just push down on that, and what I can do is use these ceiling textures to kind of show me like what would be good places to put that, such as right here. And I can just put like 4 in a row like that, and maybe drag them over here, add like couple more and then kind of do this. And in fact, I can probably just move those a little closer to the weird thing there, and right there. And this actually gives me a bit more room to work with this chandelier looking thing, because then I can make those all 2 units and have this fuller kind of thing going on. And in fact, this section here can just be 1 sector. And really, these can all just be, yeah, just Shift J, whoops, Shift J, Shift J, Shift J. This is an especially disturbing track. I really like how off-putting this one is. So now I can just select some kind of light, and I know that there are some light textures here which can be very useful. I'm running out of coffee, but I'm gonna have to stop. I'm trying not to drink too much of it, but I really enjoy the taste of coffee. Look at that, look at that creepy red light, or maybe the creepy yellow light looks cool. And these are some smaller lights, but I like that one. These are all misaligned, that's okay. I can fix that, but let's first stick these somewhere. First I want to make these a little, and really what I could do is just kind of make them each like 1. I don't have to, you know, abide by the way that they're aligned here. I can change the alignment if I want, but I'm kind of just using this right now as a guide. And you can kind of see, you kind of have to do a little bit of sculpting, and you can just drag these like that and get the effect that I want. You wouldn't be able to do this vanilla Doom just because there's really no option to mess with the alignment. You can in textures, but you really cannot do that on the flats, which is the floor and ceiling textures. And it's, again, there's just a weird idiosyncratic way that the Doom engine has traditionally behaved that kind of makes that the way it is. And to be honest, I'm not really liking this shape. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to make a single kind of light here. I'm going to extend it down, get a nice weird little texture to work here with. Maybe something like I know these are flats, but there's some useful textures here. I'll just look in the main texture area. It can get confusing talking about flats versus textures. That stuff was just baffling to me reading about it when I was a little younger. But there's some neat stuff here that that's like very industrial. It kind of works well. What you can do is you can put these in different areas and get a fun effect. So you can have something like that, and then maybe have these up slightly higher. And if you want, you can kind of have another one here. Kind of get a similar effect. So now I got more of a kind of a checkerboard effect there. You can kind of give all of them that same look. What we can do is push down again. So what I want to do is just kind of match it to the texture here, like kind of just get that going. So now you've got 3 kind of levels of lights. Let's make sure that one's. And it's very industrial and odd, and it is in aesthetic contradiction of the archaic environment that it's that's set in. And it's kind of a weird looking. It's a weird looking light fixture. It has an almost chandelier-like look to it, but it's also kind of peculiar. And instead of putting a light spot down there where it's going to be all square, what I'm going to do is add a dynamic light. So there's dynamic lights here. And I can give it, let me go into Photoshop and kind of get like a pretty yellowy yellow, and that's going to be like 255, say 228, 0. And that's too big. That's actually way too well, it's actually not too bad. Maybe that kind of is what you would see. But what I'm going to do is I'm only going to make the ceilings here. I'm going to make the ceilings bright. So when I go at the colors here, I can go up to the ceiling and just get the hexadecimal code there and just paste it right from Photoshop, and that gives me a nice kind of thing there. But you know, I don't want the floor to reflect the lighting values, so I'm just going to select these. In addition to making them yellow tinted, I'm going to just also ridiculously increase the brightness. So now they look really cool, and then we got that shape on the floor there. So what I can do is I can add these wherever I want, really, and I kind of want to keep them somewhat in alignment with the way stuff's set up here. So I'll put one here, put one here. Yeah, and then now, and that also copies the dynamic lights. So now when we load the level, the map, it looks better. I think it might still be too dark. I don't know. I'm actually really, really liking the way it looks. And yeah, you can see there's some issues where things didn't get completely worked out. I'm actually going to take all this information and make it just a little brighter. Maybe 120 is what I had set on, so maybe 160. Maybe even 150. Those don't really look bright enough, though. What would happen if I set that? That doesn't really make a particularly good difference there, but probably just crank up the brightness on those. I am seeing a little issue here, so I gotta set those to be 150. And that's another thing that the original engine can't, you know, make subtle distinctions like that. Like it would end up jumping to 160 to 176, kind of does it in increments of 16. Just keep in mind, this was the VGA days when you didn't really, oh, look at that. That all looks, well, that thing's not supposed to be there. It's supposed to be in the middle. But now this looks way closer to what I had intended. Although I think that those light sources could be maybe a bit brighter. Maybe you could make them 70. You can't really control too much about the intensity. I can just simply add additional lights there, but really what I think I'm going to do is this is going to be like the final detail here, is just add a couple of little architectural adornments here that are really just going to be spaces to hold additional light sources, and I'm going to join them so I don't have to modify them individually. So select these 4 here, press J, and you can see that there. So I'm going to just raise these to probably close to the catwalk level, and I'm going to keep in mind like where it is in terms of the texture there, and they all reflect that, and then I can lower them by a certain amount too. Yeah, and then yeah, these are all going to be the same brightness as those things. So now I add the what hopefully will be the final decoration here for now. And these green torches are going to create a different look because I have these you know, the candelabras with the yellow flames. So now there's some nice green flames there, and I'll make the sector green, even though the game is going to color it a little bit when I actually load it up. I want to have a nice little effect here on the walls. So it's going to be kind of green. It's going to be a greenish thing going on there, which is really cool, and make them a lot brighter, maybe like 200. And that's, yeah, that's kind of a not too bad of a look. That's not too shabby. And we can make the surface, the floor, kind of reflect that, but the floor doesn't. The floor can be a little desaturated, so maybe like 150. So that looks better. I'm going to add the texture. And really, what we can probably do just to make it look even nicer is just kind of bring it all the way to there. And maybe have these fire sticks, as they're called in the game, just kind of scooted like that. And they create a pretty decent effect. They still look kind of dark, which is why I'm going to add, even though it's going to, well, it is going to generate its own light in the game. So if I go here, I can see that it does, but that light doesn't really affect the, you know, the catwalk. So I may have to just add another one where, let me just copy the information here, hexadecimal information, and just, this, instead of being a flame, is going to just be a light. Now there are spotlights. I don't think that we need a spotlight for this, although it might help. So let's just see what happens if I add a spotlight. That color there, I don't know, that's not using a hexadecimal value, that's using something else. I'm not sure about that. This might not create the effect I was going for. Yeah, it doesn't understand the color I tried to do with it there. So why don't we just not mess with that and just regular dynamic light, maybe a flicker. Now this is not asking for hexadecimal information, this is asking for RGB values. So so that would be 1, 197, 1. I'll just make it like maybe, actually just make it almost, let's try like maybe 200. And so what happens now is we drag that up here. Hopefully it will affect the catwalk. And I'm kind of fudging things. I'm doing something that is already being handled by the game, but I'm exaggerating it because I want the catwalk to get a little bit lit up too. So what happens if I put it in the game? We don't really see that getting affected, and that's kind of unfortunate because we also see a bit of an issue with the, oh, that's weird. We also see a bit of an issue with the supports for the catwalk there. Which creates kind of an extra texture there that doesn't seem to show up in the editor, which is kind of interesting. So I wonder if maybe it would be easier to not even go with a grade texture and to just use something completely solid for now. So, go to flats. Something like that, which is very industrial looking. Oops, that was weird. Yeah. But still, the light seems to affect things in the editor, but it's not really reflected by the renderer. The renderer is definitely not recognizing that at all. So there's not a whole lot I think we can do about that. I mean, because even if we place the light like right on the sector, I think it's because of the fact that it's 3D, so it doesn't. Yeah, it's completely ignoring the light, and I don't know if there's much you can do about that. There are going to be certain fundamental kind of limitations here. Now we could go here and say, what are the properties of this 3D floor? And there isn't really anything here. We don't see, this is disable lighting effects. Reset lighting effects? I don't know. We could try that and see if it does anything. I doubt it will, but yeah, and see, that didn't really create the effect that we wanted. So unfortunately, we are kind of stuck with that. The only thing I can think to do, and this may not work either, is to literally place candles on the catwalk, because candles create their own lighting when they're rendered in the game. So something like, say, light sources, we've got candle there. We put these on each of the kind of corners of the catwalk there, it might work, except that they're, yeah, that actually does create a nice little thing there, although it probably needs to be at the edge. We'll just put these at the edge, just so they're not getting in the way of the player, because even though the player can walk right over them, it is kind of visually distracting. So now we've got these. So now that at least gives us a little bit of contrast on the, you know. Yeah, I think maybe it's just not recognizing what I want it to recognize. That's okay. And it looks like the lighting is sort of bleeding through right here. And that's not that big of a deal. It's just something that the engine unavoidably does. But yeah, this whole area looks super cool. So let's just take a look at it now, and we'll be done. Now, it starts out here. I already have a player. No, I don't. Hopefully this will work as intended. And it looks kind of weird here, but when you start out, you have the red kind of coming in. You can see out in the distance that there's some kind of, crazy looking tower. And there's these bars blocking it, so you hit that switch. And this is where some trickery comes in, because although I'm going up this staircase overlaps itself, it automatically teleports me to a different part of the map where I kind of have that same thing laid out, because I can't technically have them stacked on top of each other. And then I wanted to do a little thing here where you'll die if you fall in the water. And there's, I got God mode and flying mode on here. So if you go down here, there's actually some spot shadows meant to mimic like the shadows from these objects there. And I think the effect is pretty interesting. So when you jump to these platforms, grabbing each of these health potions causes part of this to kind of go down, and that's something you can do without scripting, which is cool. And then grabbing that megasphere takes me here. And we can either go this way, so it's kind of an asymmetrical layout. We can either go this way to get to the library, which I think this looks pretty cool, though I'm going to add more lighting as I mess with this. And I may make those windows a little bit more elaborate. Or we can go the other way. As you can see, it looks pretty plain here. Nothing really going on. Go the other way, and you don't have access to the catwalk. And when you walk under the windows, you can see that you get kind of lit up there, which is cool. And the whole thing is very dark and mysterious. I want to definitely add more lighting and more effects here, but oh, that's so cool how it's just creepy and red when you get under it. And of course, you can go up the stairs here. There's obviously going to be lots of enemies, lots more stuff to do, but this is something I like, is that it's not really symmetrical, but it ends up in a symmetrical area. So I think having some symmetry is good, but it's also good to break it up. You can see the ambient occlusion kind of going back and forth there, because just the limited rendering here, but it's not that big of a deal. And you can kind of swim through this, and it's so weird. I think it's a fantastic kind of effect that I did, totally unintended. I didn't know what it was going to be. Um, I think overall we got some cool effects going on here. This is like a very weird kind of thing we have, and if I fly here, I'm gonna actually transport to this part of the map where you're not really supposed to see any of this, so it's all glitchy looking. But when you're looking down, you see that intimidating structure there, which I'll put more things on, and it's really cool. And like I said, these lights here help things. I might add some sort of lighting inside of the switch here. Um, those kind of effects there are really just to help illuminate things for the player, but it also creates a nice aesthetic. And you can kind of see this overlap happening, and it kind of helps keep things, the map kind of keeps things from getting too crazy. I like the way it handles that. And there's something very Doom 64-esque about this layout, which I'll add more to. Everything's going to have more detail eventually, but overall, it's a fun little thing. I'm going to continue updating with this and other Doom maps that I'm kind of playing around with, and hopefully you'll hear more from me more often. I really haven't been very active on social media lately, so I'm trying to just do this as an exercise to kind of get more comfortable getting behind the camera and doing long form stuff like this. So, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll do more soon.